It may be a surprise for some of you who experienced a quite different picture in prior years. Hunley's crew was given one final task, that of deactivating the ship. I've been asked a number of times over the last several months, gee, which shipyard is going to conduct the deactivation? The answer is the Hunley crew did it. This, of course, saved a great deal of money. What did it entail? The chief engineer planned and coordinated the preparation and turnover to the shipyard of all 746 spaces and compartments, one at a time. The offload of 500,000 gallons of fuel and 80,000 gallons of lube oil and the draining and air blowdown of all piping systems. The supply officer supervised the offload of 64,000 line items of repair parts with a value of over $22 million. 32,000 items of other materials such as tools and furniture valued at $6 million were also offloaded. 607 tons of material and almost 1,300 crane lifts were taken off the ship between May and July. This innovative approach taken saved the government over $300,000. Deck department prepared and transferred the 9 small boats. I tell you, they may be referred to as small boats, but they are not that small when you try to put them on the pier and move them on a truck down the street. Other major tasks were the offload of the 62 life rafts, the complete paint out of the ship. The weapons department conducted all the crane lifts and then laid up all 7 cranes. The administrative department coordinated orders for 1,300 crew members, including retirement of 50 individuals, early separation for over 200, and countless re-enlistments. The ship met all these decommissioning goals safely and ahead of schedule. It's now time to let Hunley rest. She has truly served her country well. Those of us who have served on her will continue to have lasting memories of her proud service and the people who made her what she is. I again thank you all for joining us as we honor the proud service of Hunley.
Captain Holloway, Commander, Submarine Squadron 8.
Vice Admiral Bacon, Vice Admiral Emery, Rear Admiral Buchanan, Rear Admiral Harness, Rear Admiral Murphy, Captain Helfen, officers and crew of Hunley, past and present, Hunley families, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. USS Hunley has an honored record of over 30 years of submarine support, part of which you've just heard described by Captain Helfen. She served in Holy Loch, Guam, and Charleston. It's the final chapters of her record of service here in Norfolk that I'd like to take just a minute or two to tell you about. Hunley came to Norfolk in 1987, and since that time has been an absolutely critical part of Submarine Squadron 8. During that period, Hunley's provided superb support to the ships of both Squadrons 6 and 8, despite the difficulties of working for 2 different organizations, not to mention 2 different commodores. During the same period, Squadron 8 grew to include at one point 21 submarines by itself alone. Hunley's superb maintenance support was absolutely critical to the success that those submarines earned during that period. Hunley picked up the load for both Squadrons 6 and 8 whenever their other assigned tenders were gone. In addition to all that hard work in Norfolk, Hunley also deployed from here to Charleston to support their submarines and to South Florida for the relief mission Hurricane Andrew. I could go on describing Hunley's superb accomplishments just during the period while she was assigned to Squadron 8, including things like the Sinkland Fleet Golden Anchor Award. Captain Helfen's already touched on many of those, and I'm sure our next speakers will cover them even better. I'd just like to say that Hunley has been an absolutely critical part of the team here, and all of us in Squadron 8 are going to miss her very much. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a man who, as the saying goes, needs no introduction. Our force commander, Vice Admiral Emery's distinguished career of service to our nation is outlined in your program. Service at sea on 5 submarines and a critical billets ashore prepared him for flag rank, where he served in the Bureau of Personnel as Commander Submarine Group 5, and here in Norfolk as Commander Submarine Force, U.S. Atlantic Fleet. His commitment to the sailors who manage ships is unmatched, and the leadership that he's providing the entire submarine force during this period of change is priceless. Ladies and gentlemen, a distinguished naval officer, Vice Admiral George Emery.
Thank you, Commodore, and good morning. Admiral Bacon, fellow flag officers, Commodore, Captain Helton, how are you doing? Feeling all right? Former crew members and families of Hunley, including all these skippers, submarine veterans of World War II, some of my good friends out there. It's a pleasure seeing you all here today. I'm glad the sun is shining. I admit that it is a pleasure to be here, but I admit it is a pleasure of some mixed emotion. It's tough to say goodbye to one of the truly great workhorses of the submarine force, the tender Hunley. I was reading over the ship's history, and I guess I had forgotten just how much we have asked of her and her crews over these past decades. So Bill was in the 8th grade. Gee whiz, that makes me feel old. Because I was at the Naval Academy as a midshipman in my 3rd year of education when Hunley was commissioned, and by the time that I qualified in submarines, she'd already spent 4 years refitting submarines in Holy Lock. I looked at the rest of Hunley's history, and it looks like a very odd Michelin guide. From Holy Lock, she went to Charleston, then back to Holy Lock, then back to Charleston, then to Guam, then to Charleston, then to Guam. There's a Charleston in here all the time, I notice. There does seem to be an anchor there. She goes to Bremerton, she comes back to Charleston. She goes to Boston, she comes back to Charleston, but she goes via Guam. This is an odd Michelin guide. Hunley was in Holy Lock, of course, on several occasions later in her life, and finally, as the Commodore and Bill have described, arrived here in Norfolk in the latter part of the last decade, and she has provided the sort of assistance that the Commodore has described to you so wonderfully, so well, so superbly over these last few years here at Submarine Group 8. And although I don't have any hard data to back this up, I doubt that there's any ship in the United States Navy in commission today that's had the sort of varied history that Hunley has had. The record of achievement has been superb, and the men and women who have served aboard her deserve our utmost appreciation and our utmost respect. Before I introduce the guest speaker, who was the 11th commanding officer of Hunley, it's my privilege to present on behalf of the Secretary of the Navy a much-deserved award to the crew and crews of Hunley. Captain Helton, would you please join me at the podium? And XO, if you would be kind enough to read the citation.
Hunley, hut and hut. The Secretary of the Navy takes pleasure in presenting the Meritorious Unit Commendation to USS Hunley AS31 for service as set forth in the following citation. For meritorious service in connection with highly successful submarine tender operations in Norfolk, Virginia, from 1 August 1992 to 30 September 1994. USS Hunley distinguished itself as a leader in the United States Atlantic Fleet by providing repair and logistics service to nuclear-powered fast attack submarines from Submarine Squadrons 6 and 8. The consistently outstanding performance of the crew in maintaining the operational readiness of fast attack submarines was unsurpassed and served to significantly improve the operational readiness of the United States Atlantic Fleet. At the same time, Hunley significantly upgraded its own material condition to the best observed in years. The crew was identified as a superior performer in numerous inspections, evolutions, and examinations. Through their dedicated service, high state of material readiness, and sustained excellence in personnel performance, Hunley contributed substantially to the strength and security of the United States. By their continuous display of professionalism, unrelenting determination, and total devotion to duty, the officers and enlisted personnel of USS Hunley reflected great credit upon themselves and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Signed, J.H. Dalton, Secretary of the Navy.
I'm going to have the Executive Officer, break the Meritorious Unit Commendation pennant.
Aye, sir. Officer of the deck, break the Meritorious Unit Commendation pennant.
Aye, sir. Break the Meritorious Unit Commendation pennant.
Executive Officer, the Meritorious Unit Commendation pennant is at the truck, sir.
Captain, Meritorious Unit Commendation pennant is at the truck.
Very well, XO.
I'd now like to take this opportunity to present a personal award to Captain Bill Helfand for the outstanding leadership that he has provided during his tour on Hunley, not only in support of the submarines of Squadron 8, but other submarines, as has been mentioned to some extent, but considerably more needs to be said, and it's my pleasure to present this award on behalf of the United States to Captain Bill Helfand to compliment him and his crew for what they've done. XO.
The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Legion of Merit, Gold Star in lieu of Third Award, to Captain William Helfand, United States Navy, for service as set forth in the following citation. For exceptionally meritorious conduct in the performance of outstanding service as Commanding Officer, USS Hunley AS31, from June 1993 to September 1994. Captain Helfand's exceptional leadership and enthusiastic drive in the pursuit of excellence were directly responsible for an unprecedented level of operational and administrative achievement by Hunley. From the Golden Anchor Award for Retention and Personnel Programs Excellence to Hunley's significant improvements observed on the Radiological Controls Practices evaluation, Captain Helfand led his crew to attain the highest and most challenging goals. Through his outstanding material management, Hunley has maintained a state of readiness second to none, a remarkable accomplishment for a 32-year-old ship. Awarded the Captain Edward F. Ney Award for 2 consecutive years, Hunley's extraordinary success was a testament to his command philosophy that taking care of your people results in operational excellence. He was successful because he took care of his people always and first. By his outstanding leadership, bold judgment, and inspiring dedication to duty, Captain Helfand reflected great credit upon himself and upheld the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. For the President, J.H. Dalton, Secretary of the Navy. Hunley, parade, rest.
Thank you, XO. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. We had to literally drag Admiral Bacon from his home in the beautiful Northwest, where he grew up in Bremerton, Washington. I promised him we'd even try to make it rain today so he'd seem at home. But we blew it, Admiral. Admiral Bacon graduated from the Naval Academy in 1959. And as with so many officers of his day, his first assignment before joining the submarine force was aboard a surface ship. For Roger Bacon, that ship was USS Isherwood, DD-520. Following submarine school and prototype training, he had tours aboard the submarines Halibut and Kamehameha, and then came back to Halibut as her executive officer. Admiral Bacon commanded the submarines Flasher and Patrick Henry. He was the Submarine Force Pacific Fleet Prospective Commanding Officer Instructor before assuming command as the 11th Commanding Officer of this fine ship, the USS Hunley, in 1979, probably about the time Bill graduated from high school. Under Admiral Bacon's command, Hunley earned several Navy awards for excellence: the Battle Efficiency E, the Engineering E, and a Golden Anchor Award for retention, as well as their first, perhaps not their first, but an earlier meritorious unit commendation, and the Secretary of the Navy Environmental Protection Award. The Admiral then served in Pearl Harbor as Commander Submarine Squadron 1 and as Chief of Staff to the Submarine Force Commander in the Pacific. And it was during that tour in which he was selected to flag rank. As an Admiral, his tours included duty as the Strategic and Theater Nuclear Warfare Division and Assistant Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Plans, Policy, and Operations, as the commander of Submarine Group 8, our submarines in the Mediterranean, and as commander of the Submarine Force Atlantic Fleet before finally serving as Assistant Chief of Naval Operations for Undersea Warfare. Admiral Bacon retired in 1993, and he and Joan are enjoying their well-deserved retirement. There is one other thing, though, which has always impressed me about Roger Bacon and his family, and that is his family. You see, Roger's late father, Rear Admiral Bart E. Bacon, commanded USS Pickerel, the submarine Pickerel, in the Pacific during World War II. His younger brother, Dan, a retired Navy commander, commanded the USS Haddock. And the Admiral's twin brother, Captain Bart Bacon, retired, commanded the submarine Trout and the USS Cleveland. Admiral Bacon is part of a truly extraordinary naval family, a national treasure. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming one of our submarine force heroes, Vice Admiral Roger F. Bacon.
George, I thank you for that wonderful introduction. It's wonderful to be back here in Norfolk on this beautiful sunny day for a kind of a bittersweet moment, as people have said before me. Admiral Emery, Admiral Buchanan, Admiral Murphy, Admiral Harness, Commodore Holloway, Captain Helfand, former skippers throughout the audience here, current and former officers and crew members of Hunley, the many distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. For hundreds of years, we in the Navy have marked important events in the life of a ship with formal ceremonies. Commissionings like Charlotte's ceremony tomorrow are a happy, forward-looking time filled with the anticipation of the challenges that lie ahead. I'm sure there are those here today that can reflect on Hunley's launching and commissioning 32 years ago. But decommissioning, such as today's ceremony, are usually a more somber occasion in which we take a nostalgic but very proud look back over the life of the ship. As we reflect on the many accomplishments of USS Hunley, we are left with a great respect, a great sense of pride and genuine feeling of fulfillment for a ship with its legacy of incredibly dedicated crews. A ship with people who have served their country well. And as you have just seen, certainly we owe recognition of Captain Bill Helfand and his fine crew for the pride they have shown in their ship during its final years of operation and preparation for inactivation. Bill, to you and your crew, I extend my personal and heartiest well done for your hard work in the Hunley can-do tradition of fixing submarines and in preparing the ship for inactivation. As we look back at a ship whose life epitomizes the concept of a submarine tender, the flexibility, the ability to go forward, to repair ships. As George has said, we can recall that about 1/3 of Hunley's active duty was in Holyloch, Scotland, 1/3 in Charleston, about 1/3 in Norfolk here, and there were some memorable years in Guam thrown in. The flexibility to move an awesome nuclear propulsion and ballistic missile system repair capability anywhere in the world involved the vision and creation of a national strategic asset. This mission which fell to USS Hunley, represented much more than the usual material object of a seagoing vessel. The steel plates of this tender are simply a skeleton in which the talent and dedication of its crew to fulfill that mission were framed. The crew is truly the soul of the ship, for it takes a crew of highly trained and motivated professionals who are unified in their purpose, such as the men and women you see here today, to make Hunley come alive. They're the ones that keep all of the repair department shops working. They keep the ship's systems in top shape. They train the young sailors. They make the decisions. they supply the customers, the submarines alongside. As we gather to say so long to a great submarine tender, we can clearly see that today's ceremony is about the people who served aboard this wonderful ship for the past 32 years, and those who built her, the plank owners that are with us today. Truly, thousands of men and women have written her amazing story. Many of you, as I, have traveled a long distance to be here. Did we come just to witness the securing of the watch? I don't think so. We have come to Norfolk today for a number of reasons, each personal, but most of us are here, I believe, because there is a bond between us. Not as classmates, not because we are machinists, not electricians, mates, submariners, or some other specialty. We have gathered here because of a much stronger bond. We are shipmates. The term shipmate has a very special significance, one only fully understood by sailors. Those of us here today are shipmates, not necessarily because we served aboard Hunley at the same time, but because we are somebody special. We are Hunley sailors who did a tough job in keeping submarines ready to do their missions. We remember our personal contributions to that vital mission. Now, I've mentioned that the proper perspective between this ship and its equipment and its sailors is the fact that it is the men and women and not the machinery that make the ship. Yet this assemblage of steel, wires, pipes, systems, and repair machinery is what we held together. We improved it and kept ready to do the job of fixing submarines. Newport News craftsmen, Commander Glenn Snell, and all the plank owners put her together as the first tender built from the keel up to service the Polaris submarine fleet. The crews which followed improved her, converted her to different configurations time and again, and maintained an awesome repair capability with the latest state-of-the-art equipment over her 32 years lifetime. We are here to bid farewell to that work of art, that creation of modern submarine repair capability. We have come all this way because despite the heartaches, the tough jobs, the midnight repairs, the dodging of typhoons, the weather in the lock, and many other remarkable adventures, we have a deep affection for this assemblage of steel pipes, machines, and wires. Hunley is something special. 34 years ago, Senator Clinton Anderson, one of the strong early congressional supporters of the nuclear submarine program, expressed the nation's feeling about the technological marvel of the Polaris submarine while speaking at the commissioning of USS Patrick Henry, a ship Hunley would serve in both the Pacific and the Atlantic. He said, "Today we are commissioning a ship which combines two technological revolutions in one, nuclear propulsion and ballistic firepower." Senator Anderson went on to say that a Polaris fleet will be almost immune to surprise attack. Its units will be dispersed and moving over millions of square miles of ocean, and that with confidence we can say that the nuclear-propelled ballistic missile submarine marks the closest approach now foreseeable to an ultimate deterrent, 34 years ago. And for the first 25 years of Hunley's life, the Hunley shipmates, many of you here today, were a major part of that ultimate deterrent. You accomplished unheard of feats in complex nuclear propulsion, ballistic missile repair, and maintenance of ships, such as Patrick Henry and all of her follow-on sister ships. You did the uncommon task to make certain that these submarines indeed would be at sea the majority of their service lives, well prepared to operate anywhere submerged in the world's oceans. You sent them to sea with reliable and tested navigation, fire control, propulsion, missile launcher, and ship systems. You provided the very best supply support for these customers. our strategic submarines alongside, which would spend months at sea, patrol after patrol. Success in this endeavor did not come from technological breakthroughs. It came from people who would ensure painstaking attention to 1,001 details, who could make the brilliant technical judgments without a tech manual, because that particular problem hadn't been encountered before. These achievements came from those who were willing to accept responsibility and accountability. And it came from Hunley shipmates who doggedly persevered with just plain hard work and fortitude to get that submarine ready on time for our next patrol. And then you tackle the next submarine alongside, and the next, year after year. You will see in your program some of the highlights of Hunley's service. Some have already been mentioned. There have been many throughout her gallant history. But in reflecting on this talk, I read about her namesake, Horace Lawson Hunley, who built the Confederate submarine H.L. Hunley, named after him, of course. The submarine had a little problem every once in a while. He failed on numerous occasions. 32 men were lost during 4 dives, including Horace Hunley himself. But despite these problems, the Confederate submarine Hunley was finally successful in sinking a warship, the first submarine to do so, despite the loss of Hunley itself during that encounter with Housatonic. But to me, Horace L. Hunley's dogged determination, his perseverance, his drive, fortitude, persuasiveness, his ability to convince people to go on with this project, his ability to press on and get the job done. These are the attributes of Hunley shipmates over the past 3 decades. His personal character reflects what has been such a vital part of all who have served on board his namesake ship, USS Hunley. Countless sailors with that same drive and perseverance have prevailed in maintaining a ready submarine fleet over these many years. I can think of no better example of perseverance than that represented by all those who have battled to keep Hunley's main engines operational. Every ship has its internal nemesis. For Hunley, it was her 6 main engines. The boards of inspection and survey would do their inspections and simply write in their reports, Hunley's engines are improperly designed. Replace them. Skippers, engineers, snipes of all ages, squadron and force commanders all have put in countless years and dollars of effort to maintain these engines on the line. People would solve problem after problem and somehow keep enough of them going to get the ship where it was needed to do its job. My hat is off to all those who have accomplished a Herculean task in keeping Hunley's main propulsion on the line. And Bill has told me that right now they're in the best shape ever. Horace L. Hunley's imagination, dedication, and vision in creating that first successful submarine warship was replicated many times in Hunley's service. There were many firsts. Hunley was the first to handle the A-3 and C-3 and then be converted back to handle the A-3 missile. She was the first to relieve the old Pro, USS Proteus, on many occasions in both the Atlantic and Pacific. And many of the highlights, or firsts, if you will, are found in our memories of service on this ship. Some here may not want to remember about the stowaways from the lasses from Australia that were up there in that starboard missile crane for a voyage coming out of Australia one time. But I recall rushing to this pilot house above us from a New Year's Eve party at the Officers Club in Guam. I was in dinner dress with Joan, my wife. And we had to get there right at midnight, and we got there. And since America's Day begins in Guam at 1 second after midnight, we re-enlisted the first sailor to do so in the United States Navy in 1980 in that pilot house, a first. Another highlight and first I recall was that while in Guam, we brought aboard the first women to serve on a tender in the Pacific overseas. One of the female officers who reported aboard was assigned to the repair department electrical division. As I was touring a submarine alongside whose motor generator rotor had been removed for repairs, I noticed someone way inside this cylinder of this machine, all covered with carbon dust, khakis, dirt, carbon dust all over. It was our new female assistant electrical officer on her second day on the job. And from that moment on, I knew what a solid contribution women on a tender would make. As Bill has mentioned, this spring, there were about 500 of us all-American Blue Jackets were women, 38%. Women on our submarine tenders have done the tough jobs year after year with exceptional skill and ability.